Today I'm here with a good friend, Darren Greenfield, and he's a farmer here in Weimar, California. He's going to be showing us how to prune some stone fruit, some peaches, and this will give you an idea of how you can do this at home. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. So we're going to dive right in. Darren's going to show you how he does it here on his farm.
So here we see this peach tree that's growing nice, and it's got a good top and fairly good specimen. But right here at the base, there was a graft somewhere around here where there's a different type of rootstock than what the top variety that bears the fruit is. And trees typically have a lot of vigor in the roots. And the idea of grafting is to take the vigor from the roots into the top of the tree to produce lots of fruit. But trees like to push some shoots out and start growing the rootstock. And this is from last year. If this was left on here, in a couple of years, this would be bigger than the tree. The tree would actually, the roots would put more energy into this than it would into this. This would stop growing, and after not that long, this would actually take over and become the tree, and it wouldn't bear good fruit. The rooting varieties actually don't have good tasting fruit that you would desire to eat. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut these off and stop them from growing so that the tree's energy will go into the top. I try to cut them back as close to the trunk as possible, because the more that sticks out, the more shoots will come off the side, and you'll end up with a forest of all these suckers that are growing. So this nectarine tree here is a good example of the shape that we want to have. It starts off with a single trunk down the bottom and then branches out, and we want ideally 4 branches that are almost vertical, not quite 90 degrees, maybe 80 or 75 degrees going out, so that we have a open vase shape. And that lets light and air come into the middle of the tree and keeps the tree healthy. And by having 4 branches, we actually are multiplying the tree by 3 or 4 times the potential yield that it would have if you just left a single trunk growing up in the middle. And so the goal is that we will end up with a strong tree that can bear lots and lots of fruit. And we want to first shape the tree to be the shape that we want. There's lots and lots of budding wood that's on the tree, and the tendency is that we want to save all that because it's going to bear fruit. But when you look at the diameter of the branches, these are very small. This is a 3 years since it was planted nectarine, and the branches are still very thin. They can't bear a lot of weight. They will tend to bend and break if you let too much fruit be on them. By thinning them down to 4, the tree will put its energy into these 4, and they'll get big and strong. Whereas if you have lots of branches around the tree, they will be smaller, and it'll be hard to work on the tree when it comes to harvesting and any type of pruning you want to do. It's good to have a place on the tree that's open that you can actually step into the inside of the tree and be able to work on it. And we'll take a look at another one as an example that's a year older. This is 3 years old. You can see it's 6 or 7 feet high. We've cut it down because it's so thin at the top, and if it had fruit way up there, it's going to bend. So we cut it down, let this get stronger before we let it grow taller. So we can let it grow taller as it gets bigger and stronger and older. But it's not a perfect shape, but it's basically relatively evenly spaced 4 branches that are going out at an angle. So this is more of an ideal, and we can show you one that's not ideal, but it still works if you just choose the best branches that are there. Okay, so here's an example of a tree that doesn't have very symmetrical 4 ideal branches that we can leave as the structure of the tree. So we chose the ones that were the closest. We have one that comes up here and then two that come off the side that will bear a fair amount of weight. Then this one coming off the side here for another one, that's the fourth one. And then we've got a smaller one coming out this side where it's a little bit more vacant, that will eventually give us a nice strong branch to bear fruit. So this is not ideal, but it will work, and it's going to be open in the middle, and as it continues to grow we can choose where we prune it to have the angle that we want. Just like this branch here, it's kind of a bit more vertical than I want it to angle out a bit more. So we've cut it here, and this one is going out at an angle, and after a few years you won't even see this cut. It'll just look like one branch and it'll be going in the general direction that we want it to go. So not ideal, but it will work, and this tree will bear a lot of good fruit. I like the tree to actually have an opening in the middle where you can actually step up into it. As the tree gets bigger and you're harvesting and so on, it's nice to be able to step up into the tree in the center, and you can reach up and get the fruit on the inside, and that makes it a lot easier to work on it. But if these branches are starting up here, it's a little high to get your foot up here and climb up into, so keeping them down low is a big advantage. All right, so this is a 1 year older than the other one. The other was 3 years since it was planted. This one is 4 years since it's planted, and this is a good example of the shape that we want. You can see the difference in size between the other one and this one. They grow a lot in 1 year. Once they start getting big, they really take off. And so we've got 4 nice strong branches that are going to bear a lot of fruit. I've got an open side of the tree that I can step up into, and I can work on the inside of the tree and pick and harvest from here. And the branch here has lots of little shoots off the side that actually will, where these buds are is where the fruit is going to form, and they're nice and close to the trunk, so we don't have lots of branches growing out far and wide like this, but we've kept it nice and close. And as they get bigger in diameter, you can prune them off, and the tree will always push out some more of these small twigs, and you'll have several, 2, 3 peaches on there. They'll bend down a little bit, but this will hold a lot of fruit just on at this size, a couple of inches diameter. It's quite strong, but sometimes that's not strong enough to actually support all the weight, and they'll start sagging out. So that's where we get some tree rope. It's just probably 1/4 inch or 3/8 diameter rope, and we can put this around the tree up high like this and tie it off. I just tie a loop around it, put this through, and just, you don't have to have it super tight. I just put a little bow in it like that, and then as the fruit is growing and getting heavy, the branches pull against each other and support each other, and you don't get your branches sagging, because even if they don't break but they bend, after they've been bent there for a while, they stay in that shape, and you don't want them to be sagging down, you want them to stay up. So this helps give them support, and it's amazing how much fruit just a tree of this size can bear. Probably at a guess could have 100 or more pounds of fruit that you will get off a tree of that size. Here we have a peach tree. This is an early bearing peach that fruits in May. Normally it wouldn't be flowering until February, and we're in January. It's about a month early, and so this tree hasn't been pruned, but it's broken out in flower, and it needs to be pruned. I'm just leaving the flowers so the bees can have a feast at this time of the year while it's nice and warm and they're out of their hives, because there's nothing else around with flowers on. But this, you can see an example of all these flowers, 10s and 20s, or I don't know, there could be 50 or more flowers on there, and each one of these flowers would turn into fruit if you just did nothing with them. And so one of the things we have to do after we've done the pruning and shaping of the tree is thin the flowers to the amount that a little twig like this can bear. You can imagine each peach could be half a pound, and it doesn't take too many, and this is going to be hanging down and eventually breaking there. Okay, so we're going to thin the flowers on this branch here so that the flowers will set fruit and the fruit will form on this branch. Right now we have too many, so the closest one to where the branch is starting is back here. So I'll strip the ones off and leave this one here. The distance between my tip of my thumb and the tip of my finger is what I'm looking for, so I'll choose the next one, which will be here, and then everything else gets stripped off. So we're leaving that one. All these are coming off. You can even see a little peach right there, tiny little thing. We're going to take that off too because we don't want it. We want one here. And so from there to there, take these ones off. I'm leaving this one underneath there. And they're already setting fruit, so I have to make sure that I get the little tiny fruit off there as well. So from there, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to leave that one there and strip the rest of these guys off there, off there, off there. And I could probably leave one more, so I'm going to leave one right at the end here. And you can see the green leaves that are growing. As I've stripped the flowers, the leaves don't come off, they stay there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and this branch will handle that, although it's going to get a little low to the ground, and rabbits and critters on the ground can come and eat them easily. So ideally this one should be cut back so that they don't eat the fruit and you get upset with them. So this tree here has not been pruned this year, and it's grown a lot in the last year. It's got a lot of busy branches in there, and I want to shape it to have those 4 main branches. So I've got to choose which ones those are and then trim out the others. Right here I can see this one would be 1, this one would be 2, 3, and maybe that one would be 4, and I'd have a 5th one over there. So this one's right in the center of the tree. It's a big, strong one, and it seems like it's a shame to take it out, but it's in the middle, and if I didn't have those other branches on the side there, I would probably take this one out. The other thing I've got to look at as I move around the tree, I want to make sure they're not leaning out too far, the ones that I'm going to keep. So they look like they're fine. The tractor can go down between the trees and I can work on them without them getting in the way. So I'm going to cut this center one out, and it's going to take a little bit of cutting with this little hand saw because it's quite a fat one, but this is a pruning saw. They're not very big, they're very sharp, and you pull towards yourself, and because of the curve on there, you don't have to push down on it hard. As you pull, the curve just rips into it and cuts very nicely, so it doesn't take a lot of effort. We're nearly through, and I want a clean cut as it comes off because I don't want the bark to peel off. Okay, we'll lay that down there. Now this one's staying, that one's staying. I don't think I'm going to need this again, so I'm going to get this is an electric pruner, just like a hand one. It's just got a trigger, and when you're doing a lot of it, saves you getting carpal tunnel syndrome in your hand. So I want to open this up a little bit. This is going to be the main one, so I'm going to cut this off the side. There. I'm going to clear this busy stuff out of here. And that opens it up. That's my access point, so if I want to climb up in the tree and work on the inside, I can get up in there, I can step up and on the inside. Looking at this shape here, I don't want these two, I want one of them. So I look to see, this one here is a bit close to that one, so if I cut that off, this one and that one, it'll be fairly even. So I'm going to cut that out from here. And I don't want to cut too close to this, like really close, because where you've cut it dries out a little bit. So I cut back about half an inch from being in line with the branch, and that won't hinder the sap flow through there by drying out part of it. So put that there, and now I'm going to move around this side. I'm also going to trim out some of these low ones like this. This branch is going to stay as one of them. Take that one off the side, and this is going to be one of them, so I'm going to take that one off the side there. So now I've got my five main branches that will be the structure. And now, as I look at the rest of it, I'm now going to be thinking where the fruit is going to be born on this tree. And there's lots and lots of buds on these twigs, and so I'm going to decide which ones are going to be thinned out. I try to envision in my head where the fruit is going to be on the tree, and so if there's too many of these twigs around, I'll just cut them off, because this is for fruit bearing, and if there's not going to be fruit there, then it might as well go, because it's just more thinning that you have to do of fruit or flowers, and don't want to do more than necessary. So as I look at this one coming out quite a long way out the side, it's not too big in diameter. If I let a lot of fruit form on that, it's going to bend down, and I'm probably going to cut it off eventually. So I'm going to limit its size. I'm going to cut it back to here. It's going to have fruit on the end, probably have one somewhere around there. I'm going to trim that back. I'm going to take this one off completely. We'll probably cut that one there so that it'll have a peach here, it'll be a peach here. So that's 3 peaches right around there. And then it's going to have another one around there. We don't need that vertical one. I can probably let it have another one out here and then trim the rest of that off. And that's where the fruit's going to form. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roughly, right in that area there. And then as we come back this way, we can maybe let one form on there. We'll take this one off, because we don't want fruit in between there and there. These buds, will, when they turn into flowers, will be trimmed off. And then from there, we can let one form somewhere, maybe at the end of this, and that one will bend down. So we're actually going to have a lot of fruit right on that, just one little branch there. And then as we look at these, we'll have one maybe here and one somewhere out near the end. I'm just trimming it off like that. This one might be a bit close, so I'm going to trim that off. And if we leave this one there, this is too close, so I'll take that off, and that one. And that's too close to there, so I'm going to take that off. So I'm going to have one here, probably one up there. Trim these other ones off. So peach there, peach there. I'm going to take this one and this one off the side, and maybe leave, I'll cut this one off here. We'll let a peach grow out the end of that. I'm going to take that off there, because it's going to bend down with all that weight on, so I can probably trim the end of this one off too. It'll have one peach on the end of there. There's 2 close together here. I'm going to take this one off here. There'll be a peach probably formed somewhere there. When they're close to the trunk, you can sometimes have a few that are close together. So if one is formed, you can imagine a peach there, and then if there's one up here, there'll be a peach somewhere here. So those 2 will be very close together, but it's not going to bend or break anything because it's close to here. But if you have too many like that, they end up being really small. So the purpose of thinning is to let the tree put its energy into fewer fruits so that they get big. And everyone loves nice, big, juicy peaches or whatever the fruit is that you're growing. So again, on this one, I'm going to have a flower there, one here, and I'm just going to trim. It means less work taking the flowers off, and it's easier to cut than to thin all those extra flowers. So you can see here, this is extra, this is extra. And I just work my way up. It's a little bit high up there, and it's kind of busy up there. I can take that one off. And I think I'm going to just cut this one off up here. And that terminates the top of that branch. And you'll be amazed how much fruit will form on this one branch here. So then we move over to this one. Anything that's kind of shriveled and dark looking, you can just cut them off. That's just dead wood from last year, some twigs that died. You always get a few of those. And now I've got one down low here. Okay, we'll get 2 fruit on that, probably 1 on there. This one's too close here, so we'll take that one off. And it's getting a little bit busy in here, a little bit close, so I'll trim that one off there. This one, from growing this direction, we can let 1 form here, 1 out there, and probably 1 out here, and 1 at the end, so I won't trim the rest of that one. These 2 are pretty close. This one's coming out the side. 1 here, 1 here. I'll trim that one off. It's getting close to this one, which we'll let 1 grow there. So you can see I'm thinking where the fruit is and proximity and closeness, and I don't want them to be crowded together. When the fruit's crowded together, not only do you end up small fruit, but when they're close together, pests like a protected environment. So when you've got lots of fruit close together, the pests can go inside and eat all the fruit in a protected way that the birds and other predators can't get them. So they love it if you leave your fruit really nice and close. Plus disease transfers from one to the other easily as well. In this orchard here, we actually have deer fencing that goes around the pruner. We actually have quite a large area that's fenced to keep the deer out. And if you have deer that come wandering through, maybe it's an advantage to have your branches coming out a little bit higher up. They can reach up about this high standing on the ground, so any fruit and the shoots and leaves and everything, they'll like to just munch on those, so you're really only going to save the fruit that's a bit higher. So that's one of the things you want to consider when you prune the shape, is if you've got predators, maybe you want sheep to be in your orchard to graze the grass down, so having them higher like this, the sheep will graze around. They might reach up and trim a few low twigs and a few buds, but most of the fruit will be fine that's higher up. These electric pruners, battery operated ones, they're so light, you can see it just doesn't wear you out, and the diameter that can cut more than 1 inch in diameter, maybe 1.25 inches, and they're just an amazing tool that doesn't wear you out, and you don't get the carpal tunnel syndrome from your hand going continually all day.
You know, I really enjoy being out here amongst the fruit trees. It's such a special experience. And I know in the beginning you're terrified to cut a bunch of branches off or sections of a tree off because you feel like, oh, it's a waste, but you'll find out in the long run it actually is beneficial, because you may lose entire branches and break a tree without doing some of the pruning. So it's very, very beneficial. And we're going to have more videos coming out on pruning coming up in the future. Now, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications, and hit the like button. We'll also have some links down below. God bless and have a fantastic day.